Hello, everybody. This is Debbie from Teacher Success Coach with the Female Empowerment Show on a Wednesday. Wednesday is the day when I talk to female women. Oh my goodness, female women. Talking about live and cocoa, right? Wednesday is the day when I speak to women regarding their empowerment journey and what actually triggers them to become empowered. Because as we know, there's sometimes things trigger us to become empowered, because a lot of times we are not standing in our power. Although we know we are powerful beings, there's always something that triggers us to, derail us. So there's sometimes we have to come back and realign ourselves and group again and ground ourselves. And as a result of that, it enables us to stand in our power. So it's always something that triggers us to make us realize our greatness and enable us to stand back in our power. Right. Welcome, 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 Zoe. Thank you so very much for accepting the offer to come on show, to share your journey with us. My couple just now, so instead of women, oh my goodness, Anyway, tell us where you come from and tell us who you are, and then start telling us about your journey. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So yeah, my name's Zoe Fox. I'm originally from Birmingham, but I am based here in London, and I've been in London for the last 15 years or so. And yeah, I'm a personal growth guide for women and a podcaster, and just working on my first book.
All right, thank you. Wow. It's interesting, in all of us, I believe that everybody have a book inside of them. It just depends on how they want to, deal with it. And some people, it takes longer to come out, and others, it comes out much faster. I'm also writing a book. It's got 2 chapters to go, and that's the longest 2 chapters I've ever seen in my life. It's just, I think it's about probably 18 months or 2 years. There's 2 chapters still there, right? Whereas my book just keep on sending me emails and say, is this book on the graveyard, right? Or is it, rebuilding? I said to him, well, it's halfway on the graveyard, but I'm trying to dig it up, right? So I'm just I want it to be out at least by this year.
Yes.
It's got to be out by this year, because, after a while, when when you actually put something on the grave, it kind of get tired, because you're thinking, do I want to take it up again? But I do need to take this up, because I need it to be done, because it's like,
and the world needs your book.
That is very true. I do agree that, because it's for teachers, how to enjoy teaching, right? So I have to get that sorted. Yes. Anyway, thank you for that, Zoe. Tell us about your journey. What triggered you to come back on your empowerment journey? Because we all start off on this journey, but sometimes we on it for a short time, and then something derails us, as I said, and then we have to get back on it. So what were your triggers?
So there have been a few triggers that I feel with each of those have elevated me even further on my empowerment journey, to the point where I'm at now, where I'm actively out there working with women, wanting to help other women, because I think you get to a certain point when you realize the transformation that's possible, and then it's like the acknowledgement that you want as many women to have that as possible. So for me, the first real challenge that I encountered was the sudden passing of my boyfriend when I was 18 years old. He died very suddenly, and that really sent me on a downward spiral with my mental health. As you can imagine, it's like having the rug pulled from under your feet. The world that you think is safe is all of a sudden, no longer safe, and something catastrophic can happen at any given moment. So I really struggled with my mental health for a very long time. The first, maybe say 5 years after the passing of my boyfriend, still in a very dark and vulnerable place, I got into a relationship at the time which was very toxic, financially and emotionally abusive, which I struggled with. And it was in the moment where I realized that I was able to make a decision to either support my life or to go against it. There was a point when I was like, at this point, I'm just participating in my own suffering. It's not an easy decision to make, to move away from an abusive relationship, even though it's like it should be clear cut. There's complexities that come with that when somebody's ground you down emotionally. So when I found the power to say, this is it, this ends here, I was really emboldened by that. And then it was the joy that I found on the other side of that relationship that really bolstered me and really boosted me, and then helped me to then, a few months later, I went and it wasn't by design, but me and my now husband connected, and he provided a real safe and beautiful container for me to do a lot of healing work. So yeah, that was empowering for me. I also, at the time, I'd been working in banking for 12 years in a job that I absolutely hated. And again, it really knocked my confidence working in that environment, because I was struggling with my mental health, which just wasn't acknowledged in that corporate arena. I was really struggling there with panic attacks, and started suffering with really bad agoraphobia. The managers thought I was useless. I thought I was useless. But I started to discover that, I wasn't useless. And there was this real desire within me to want to learn more, know more, and do more to improve myself, but also to help others. So I went to university as a mature student. I didn't do university as a kid. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really lacking a sense of direction. So that was another empowering decision for me, to go to university, do something that I actually really loved, in learning about counselling and how to guide people through these traumatic and difficult circumstances, and to see people, to learn about how people can come through their hardships. It ended up being more self-serving, really, actually getting that qualification than anything else. So that was very empowering for me to then graduate. And the fact that I've managed to stick to something, I'd found something that I'd enjoyed, stuck to something and graduated, that was another big boost. And then shortly after that, I found out that I was going to be made redundant from the bank, which at this point I just took as a sign, really, to make a decision to do something different, because the thought of going for another interview for any sort of banking just shuddered at the thought. I was starting to feel more connected now with myself and my own desires, and I decided that it was time to start doing something that filled my cup a bit more than what I had been doing. So I moved into charity work, working with homeless families in one project, and then underprivileged young people in another project, engaging them in music and in the arts. And I found so much joy in doing that.
Yeah.
But I also got to see what I was capable of, because I was entrusted to set up processes and procedures, and I was able to make a real impact because there were small organizations. And that was really empowering as well, to see I'm not useless, like I was made to feel like I was at the bank. And there were people that I'm working with. It was actually, I was working with women at this point rather than under male managers. And they really saw a value in what I had to bring. So with each of these experiences, each time I was taking myself out of the comfort zone, I was rewarded a little bit more, and just empowered with each of these steps that I was taking. So the charity work was only for a short period of time, and then after that I had the opportunity to go self-employed. My brother had been working on a business for a few years. It was getting busy. He needed some assistance. He was building websites and doing marketing for large industrial companies mostly. And he really needed some support. And at this point, I thought, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. Even though all my conditioning and everything had really, having a classic job under an employer was all I'd ever really known, and all anyone in my family had ever done. So it was quite a bold step to leave, the security of payroll to being responsible for generating my own income. And when I realized that I was able to do that, again, I'm like, it's like every time I'm taking a step on this ladder, which is just leading me closer to purpose and just filling me up with more light. So I had a great time setting up this business, not without its challenges, of course. But I was really able to identify patterns within me that were keeping me stuck, or that had kept me small for so long. And, now there's nowhere to hide. I have to really step out and face these fears and be willing to get uncomfortable in the pursuit of not only personal growth, but to grow a business that is going to sustain us all, so that was really empowering. And then the next big thing was, me and my husband had been together for a while. We wanted to have a baby, and we'd been on quite a long journey with infertility. Went through several rounds of IVF, which was really disheartening. And I kind of came to a point where I'd, given up any hope of becoming a mom. And then I ended up having a spontaneous pregnancy after 6 years of thinking that, I was never going to be a mom. So that was another thing that brought another sense of personal power and responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm now the mother of a daughter, and I felt, I really needed to be able to show her what was possible in the world.
Yeah.
So again, taking myself out of my comfort zone, doing things that I wouldn't have ordinarily done, just so I can prove to myself, and so that she can bear witness to me pushing these boundaries and reaping the rewards. But it was unfortunate that on her first birthday, I sustained a spinal cord injury. And I suddenly lost all the feeling below the waist, which was not part of the plan, after longing to be a mum for so many years. It definitely wasn't part of the plan. So it was at the day of her birthday party, and my parents had come down from Birmingham, and I'd lost all this feeling. I'd had a bad back for about over a week. I'd been to the doctor. The doctor wasn't really that concerned. So I didn't think anything of it. I'd had a bad back on and off for years, hadn't really thought anything of it, but I was in such deep and excruciating pain that I couldn't function. I couldn't think straight, didn't know how I was going to get through this party. So I made a call in the morning to make an appointment with the osteopath, just out of desperation, because I thought, the party, the food's been paid for, the caterers are coming, my family's coming from Birmingham, the party's got to go ahead. And as, we tend to do as women, everything else comes before our own needs.
Yep.
Yeah. So, my own mother-in-law was like, are you sure it's a good idea to go ahead? And I'm like, yeah, it's got to happen. I've been waiting to have this child for all these years, and we've got to have this party. It wasn't going to be anything extravagant, but just a gathering of people that we really cared about, to celebrate the fact that we've got this, we've got this daughter now, and she's one, and we've longed for this for so many years. So I went off to my appointment, my osteo appointment, in the morning, and the manipulation that she did just made the pain worse. I got in a cab to come back home, and when I went to get out of the cab to come back into my house, I had no feeling at all below the waist. So I had to go by ambulance to hospital. While my parents took my daughter to the party, because it was all happening. It was too late to do anything about it now. I was just like, I'll go to the hospital, they'll give me some tablets, I'll be back, I'll be back at the party before it finished. Didn't work out that way. I ended up having to have an emergency MRI scan, which detected disc in my back, which had slipped so severely that it was crushing my spinal cord. So I ended up having to have emergency surgery on that day to stop me from being permanently paralyzed. So yeah, you've got to have surgery within 24 to 48 hours to stop you being permanently paralyzed. So they were able to save my mobility, even though now I still mobilize with crutches. And I've got a wheelchair as well that I use for longer distance stuff, because I'm still not able to walk long distances. So if we want to go to the zoo or IKEA or something like that, then I'll use my wheelchair. So it was was not what we were expecting for her first birthday. Me being in emergency surgery, and it was really, really quite difficult. And even though I'd been working consistently over a decade on my personal development and personal growth, nothing transformed me and my confidence in myself then going through that experience, which also happened to be just at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was just before everything went into lockdown. So I got kicked out of hospital after just 5 days after surgery, because everything was going into lockdown. They wanted to free up beds because of the pandemic. So I was sent home to a second floor flat with next to no mobility, bladder damage, bowel damage, permanent pain, still large parts of my legs I couldn't feel, anything below the waist, you know, not all of my feeling had returned. So I was sent home pretty broken and feeling deeply sorry for myself. And I just thought, like, how many more things can go wrong in my life? I started questioning whether I was cursed, you know, whether someone had put a curse on me. How can I go through all of these things, you know, from my boyfriend dying to ending up in an abusive relationship to struggling with infertility for 6 years. Then when I finally did get pregnant, it was every pregnancy symptom you could get, I had. I ended up on crutches for 6 months during pregnancy because I had pelvic girdle pain. And then during labor, I had sepsis and postpartum hemorrhage. So it was just like,
wow,
what else is going to happen? So it was difficult the first few weeks after coming out of hospital, facing myself with my body as it was, and the fact that it wasn't working in the way that I'd always known it to, and having to come to terms with some of those deeply personal aspects of spinal cord injury, which bring a lot of embarrassment and shame for a lot of people, such as, you know, bladder dysfunction, bowel dysfunction. As a young woman, these are the sort of things that nobody wants to have to face. But part of my mission after my spinal cord injury was to talk about some of these more challenging aspects, to take away some of the stigma that we feel. Because, you know, most people, everybody uses the bathroom in one way or another. So let's not pretend that we don't, you know, and just try and reduce a bit of shame. So after coming out of hospital, the world quickly went into lockdown. So it meant that I wasn't able to so typically after you sustain a spinal cord injury, you'll be admitted into a special spinal cord injury unit where you go and have proper rehabilitation. But because everything had gone into lockdown, rehab wasn't taking anybody in.
Wow.
I was just sent home with a urinary catheter, you know, a bag attached through my urethra with urine that was strapped to my leg. And that's how I had to live, you know, just hoping that my bladder function would return. So it was very difficult time, very dark time. But I think because of a lot of the personal development work that I'd been doing, I was able to sort of call on some of my practices to help me to work through some of the stuff that I was going through and that I was processing. So it was a difficult time, and it took actually over 13 months for me to be admitted to the special spinal cord injury centre. So that was 13 months of living at home, you know, in and out of lockdown. There was only, you know, a couple of times when lockdown was lifted where I was able to go to my parents in Birmingham for a little bit of respite. Other than that, it was just at home, you know, with a 1-year-old stuck in the flat and not really able to get out and do anything. That's when I really started turning to journaling. And
powerful. Journaling is so powerful. I recommend that to everybody. I'm an avid journal writer. It is.
Yes.
It serves so many purposes. Oh, anyway, let me not go. That's for another program, because that's a whole session on journaling, the power. Oh my goodness. Yes.
So powerful. So powerful. And the way that I described it is like you feel like pregnant with the weight of your burdens, your problems, your sorrow. But the way the paper is able to contain all of that in a non-judgmental way.
That's it.
And it just holds space, you know, and that's what it did. I would write and write whatever I wanted to write. At the time, it wasn't always deep and emotive stuff. Sometimes it would just be the practical challenges that I was up against as a newly disabled person, and all of the admin that came with that. We'd only literally just moved house like 3 weeks before my injury, so the house was still filled with boxes. We hadn't done all of our address changes or set up any of our utilities, so it was like everything was going on. So the journal was a savior. And also just outside the windows here, because we're up on the second floor, there's like 47 steps to get into my flat. So I remember the day I came home from hospital just thinking, how am I gonna get up there? You know, how am I going to do it? But it was just literally that one step at a time.
Yeah,
And
literally the one step at a time.
Yeah. So that was another empowering moment for me, was standing at the foot of what felt like Kilimanjaro at the time. And just thinking, how am I going to do this, you know, bit by bit, step by step, and just taking my time. You know, there's no other way around it. So yeah, that was another empowering moment. But like I say, the journaling, and just outside these windows here, I've got beautiful trees. So when my daughter was napping, I used to sit and pull up a chair. And because it was spring at the time of my injury, I started really just observing the trees outside and connecting to the energy of the tree and the cycle of the tree, and really noticing, you know, when the buds started coming through, and how the leaves started to unfurl, and how the leaves at first are really soft and tender, and as the months go by they become hardened and then scorched in the sun. And there was so much like metaphor in the cycle of the tree that was just really reassuring for me. You know, it made me realize that where I am at the moment is not going to be where I'm going to stay, you know, because we mimic nature. This is going to be a cycle, and I'm going to move through it. So yeah, I really used connecting to nature through my window as a tool to help me to cope with what I was going through. And in that, I started working with a coach as well at the time, because I just needed someone to help me deal with, you know, the deep issues that I were coming up against, because it was like everything was taken away from me. You know, being self-employed, because I'd started the business with my brother, and then it's not always a great idea to work with your sibling. So I ended up stepping away from the directorship at the business, because it was challenging for our sibling relationship, which I value above everything else. So I'd stepped away from that, but I was still doing some work with them freelance, and doing some other freelance digital marketing bits. So when I became injured, I wasn't able to work. You know, I'd lost everything that I'd known in that respect, my income, my routine, you know, everything that had been making me feel like I was achieving something, everything that I've been working on, you know, for 4 or 5 years was now gone. And here I was, just this shell, trying to figure out who I am now with this disability, and where I'm going to be going forward. So over the months, this power really started to rise within me. I'm like, I've just sustained a spinal cord injury at the beginning of a global pandemic and had next to no support. And I'm out here and I'm flourishing. So that was like, there's something in this. I started thinking back over my journey, over, you know, from going back to when my boyfriend died, and all the key lessons that I'd learned through each of these stages. And I was like, I feel like I know what my purpose is now. I feel like everything that I've been through, all of these hardships that I've been through, have been real opportunities for me to know myself more deeply, explore what's important to me in life, and they've given me the opportunity to problem solve at each different stage. So I've become like a master problem solver, and it's like I've got this skill set now, and I know that I'm not the only woman out there who's struggling with feeling stuck or being limited by you know, outdated thinking patterns that have come up as a result of trauma. I was like, I need to start putting this into practice now. I need to start sharing what I've learned in case it can help anyone else to alleviate just a little bit of their suffering. So it was actually with that I decided to start my podcast, which is it's now called Her Power, the podcast. It was initially called Curl Power, which was just a bit of a nod to the natural hair movement and Black and mixed race women embracing their natural hair texture, which for me, when I first started Instagram, which was, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago.
Wow.
I think, which was like, I found a real beautiful community of women who had decided to shake off what society says about how our hair is acceptable, and just to start embrace our wearing our natural hair and enjoying our natural hair and sharing hair tips and curl tips. And I'd met a lot of women who were doing great things in the natural hair community, setting up businesses, projects, doing all of this sort of stuff. And when I started the podcast at first, it was called Curl Power, because it was, just a nod to the women that I'd met within the natural hair movement who were doing empowering things within their communities. So I did start doing some interviews alongside sharing my own story. I started to realize that my story was resonating with women from the feedback that I was getting. So I was like, maybe I don't need to hide behind just interviewing other people. There's value in what I'm saying as well. So I decided to share more of my journey, and the more I shared, the more people resonated, and the more people were saying, they appreciate the vulnerability, they appreciate the authenticity, because I'm like, I always feel like honesty is the best policy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm very transparent that I'm a continual work in progress.
Yep.
I'll be forever developing. I'm not trying to sit here as some finished product and say, I'm the master of all this stuff and I'm here to teach you. But it's like, I've learned some stuff on this really hard journey. And if you're struggling, then I think, some of the stuff that I've learned might help you too. But I'm very much still developing continuously. That's my, it's like my kryptonite, personal development. I'm quite obsessed with the personal development side of things, because I just want to see what's possible from where I've been, from the depths of depression and anxiety, where I found myself standing on a tube platform one day contemplating whether or not I even wanted to exist anymore, when I was working in the bank, and the pressure of my depression and PTSD were just getting too much. And I was in the thick of this abusive relationship. And for me, that's a moment that really stands out in my mind, of like the darkest parts of my experience. And also when I came out of hospital, and there was a moment that me and my husband had just on the landing out there, where I looked at him and he looked at me, and I was like, wow, is this my life now? Is this it? And it's like, what's possible from those darkest moments? How can I take what I've been through and extract the goodness out of it? So that has then led me to develop what I'm working on at the moment, which I have called the Inner Alchemy Framework, which is basically a journey through, it's like 5 stages, essentially. The first stage being unconscious, which is where you're not necessarily aware of your problem, but you know that there's some discomfort, that you're not quite where you want to be, there's some dissatisfaction in your life, you feel stuck and you don't know how to move beyond it. So there's the unconscious stage. Then you go into the awakened stage, which is like, for me, when I had the realization that I didn't have to stay in this abusive relationship. I didn't have to go back into another banking job. I can start making decisions that are more aligned with my own values and desires. With that, you then go into the empowered stage, which is where you're then empowered to start taking action to move you closer to the things that mean the most to you. And then from empowered, it's connected. So it can be deepening connection with yourself, deepening connection with community and people around you, but also for me, deepening my connection with spirit, and to the universe, essentially, the higher guiding force that really made itself visible to me through my hard times, especially after the spinal cord injury. There were just things that were coming up that were just undeniable synchronicities, really. So that's the connected stage. And then from connected, you go on to committed, which is where you are now committed to taking action to really living your best life, really living in true integrity with your soul, with your desires, with the things that with the things that matter. So then you're taking actionable goal steps to move you forward to just really meeting and reaching your own potential. So that's what I've been working on, and that's what I'm working on with women at the moment, is how they can move themselves through the Inner World Alchemy framework, so that they can just get that sense of feeling more fulfilled within their lives, and they're able to look at their challenges and realize that the challenges don't define them, but actually, you know, within each of these challenges are these little nuggets of gold that you can extract just to make your life experience a more beautiful one.
That's so powerful. You know, thank you so much for that, because when you actually told me about your challenge earlier on when we were speaking, you know, you didn't go into great depth, you know, especially in terms of the disability. And I think it is so powerful that, you know, how you see it, that's how, you know, it is projected out there. And I think it is so important that whatever you're going through doesn't define you. You know, it's there, you know, there's more to you than what the physical aspect of definition, you know. And I think too often as women, we forget that we are so much more than just the surface of the things that define us. There's a lot inside of us that we need to connect with, other than just the physical being of, you know, only what we look like, only, you know, what the physical aspect is. There are a lot more to us. And I think it's, you know, people need to pass through that, because we have been so conditioned and programmed to not see the bigger picture. And, you know, listening to you, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, because too often we tend to just look at the basic and not look at, okay, in every negativity. As I said, I did a thing this morning on the way to work, because every morning I'm trying to do a live in the morning. And something I say in all of my my life, within every negativity, there is a positive. Sometimes we have to dig so deep to find it. But believe me, it is there, because you know why? The universe never give us all negatives. There is always a positive in this negative journey. The journey is hard as hell, but in that journey, there is something positive. There's a glimmer of light. We might have to be dusting until we find the brighter light, but there is something there. And for me, in terms of my journey, that's what really have always kept me going, because I remember one day I said to myself, hold on, come on, man. You know, it's all cannot be so dark. There must be something positive in all of that. And I began to say to myself, come on, there is nothing, you cannot have all negative. There must be a plus somewhere. Sometimes you have to dig deep, but it's there. And I realized there is a positive. But you know, when you're in the darkness of the dark, it is so difficult to start connecting that there's some light and some glimmer of hope. But there's sometimes we need to remind ourselves that's there.
Yes.
And I am so convinced, I don't care what anybody say to me, I know it is there. Amid the tears, the darkness, there's a teacher in there teaching you something.
Yes.
This little light is the teacher. And I keep on saying to everybody, there is, you know, there are lessons for us to learn, but there's sometimes, you know, we think that it's, you know, we learn it quickly. No, there's sometimes, you know, it's there, but you just have to dig deep.
Yes. And you have to ask yourself hard questions as well.
And be honest.
Yes, honesty, because otherwise you're only fooling yourself.
Exactly.
And I think like the key things to really getting those results is to be willing to have courage, to be willing to be committed and accept that there's not a magic pill that you're going to take, that you're going to wake up in the morning, but you've got to keep chipping away. It's like a sculptor, you know, with a big block of marble, just keep chiseling. And underneath, you know, there's potential for this beautiful sculpture to evolve, but you've got to be committed to be putting in the work. And just ask yourself those difficult questions. And this is where the value of journaling really comes in, because you can be like, what is this discomfort about? And you can drill down into those questions in layers, or if something particularly difficult is going on, it's like, what is this here to teach me? What is this experience trying to show me about myself? And just see every challenge as an opportunity to know yourself more deeply. And to not take stuff personally, but just to see it as an opportunity to get to know yourself better, so that you can bring yourself more joy, more connection, more purpose, and more light, really. And it's just about how you reframe your experience. There were many years where I'd wake up in the morning, the alarm would go off, I would be like, ugh, another day, getting up, doing a job that I hate, that I haven't got any confidence to do anything about in terms of leaving and going somewhere else, getting onto this treadmill, just feeling that dread, going out, getting on the tube. Everything I was doing was filled with negative and dark emotion and feeling. But then it's like, how can we start to reframe it? Instead of just turning up to this job for 12 years that you hate, it's like, well, what is this discomfort teaching me? Perhaps I'm not in the right job. Perhaps I should just take a risk of applying for something. And if it doesn't work, you get data from everything that you do. If you go for a job and it didn't go well, then you're able to think, what can I do better next time? And it's about, not giving up, keep going, and use every no as an opportunity to get closer to a more aligned yes for you. So we've just got to do the best that we can to reframe the negative things that happen in our life for a more, in my experience, a more enjoyable life experience, to where now I'm waking up and I'm excited about the day. I'm excited to be waking up, doing the work that I enjoy, making a difference, and creating something that can have a positive impact in the world. And for me, that's purpose, waking up with enthusiasm every day, even if I'm in pain, even if my body, because that's an unfortunate thing now with my injuries. I do have permanent pain. So I think in many respects, I work even harder to find the positives, because otherwise I'm just going to be spending every day focusing on, the fact that my body doesn't work the way that I want it to, or that I'm experiencing this pain. It's like, let me work even harder to find the beauty in each of these moments and experiences.
My goodness, it is so empowering listening to you, because there's so many, because there's so many challenges that you're working with. And it's like, it's a reformation in terms of what we take for granted. That's something I say as well in the morning. What we take for granted. It's interesting when you were talking about that, the tree. I remember once, it's like in my darkest days, I used to be driving, because I used to be helping, with my sister in terms of the work she was doing. And I would pass every day. I'm passing by this tree, this big tree. And every day, it's like how we used to take things for granted. Well, when you're in a hard place, the trees have meaning to you.
Yeah.
Because I used to look at that tree and I'm thinking, when spring comes, that tree had 3 different color leaves on it. And every day I'm looking at that tree and I'm saying, oh my goodness, let's see what color leaf is going to be coming up again tomorrow. Because I was seeing that tree and I'm thinking, because the tree started off and I never knew it had 3 different colors. The leaves were 3 different colors. And I took pleasure in doing that same way every day, to look at the tree and actually talking to the tree in my head.
Yeah. Well, because you sound crazy, but you communicate with their energy, because they are, they're living energetic beings, so but this is the thing, we're so busy in the hubbub of the day to day and the pressures and everything that we've got to do. But if you take the time to slow down enough, you'll be amazed what's out there, that you can connect to energetically, that can uplift you and inspire you.
Exactly. And at that time I had no choice, because there was no busy, because I couldn't get into the schools. I was having challenges. And every day that tree, and then I began looking at other trees to say, okay, this one have 3 different color leaves. Let me see if the others have those kind of leaves as well. And I remember when I was dropping people off, I'm talking to them about this tree and they're thinking, Debbie, you're mad. What's wrong with you? I said, you don't understand. You do not understand. I said, do you realize the beauty in this?
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like when you're talking about the tree outside, I could connect with that because in those days when nothing else, nothing else was happening for me, I had to connect with that energy. And I saw so many things in that tree that before I was passing the tree all the time, I never saw the tree because I was too busy. But the time when I was forced to slow down, when I had no choice and have to start reflecting, the tree and I were in alignment.
Yes, and that's what it is. It's an energetic alignment. Yes. And that in itself is very stimulating, on a spiritual level. It really changes your perception of your experience because you're like, wow, there's something greater than that we see on the day-to-day when our heads are in our phones or we're on watching the TV or just so clouded by our own thoughts and day-to-day worries that we miss all of this. But this is how life is designed, isn't it, really over the years, to keep us busy, to keep us in employed in jobs that we're not necessarily satisfied with, and just disconnected essentially in this country anyway, particularly in the cities, just disconnected from nature and the profound wisdom that it's got. It
is so true. It is so true because it's like in your darkest hour, you start finding, as I said, in terms of you start digging deep and you start finding the positive, and everything for you become a moment of joy.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when the true gratitude, which was another key thing in my journey, was my body's not functioning, but then I'm starting to feel deep gratitude for the tree that's outside. I'm starting to feel gratitude for the bits of my body that are still working. And also in sitting at the window, it was like, at one point, I'm like, has this been the thing that's finally sent me mad? Because I'm sure this tree is communicating, with me. And I was like, if this, in my head, I'm having this dialogue and I'm like, if what I'm thinking is real, give me a sign. And in that moment, this white butterfly went past and I was like, oh, no way, that's just a coincidence. I was like, give me another sign. And then another white butterfly went and I was like, is this just a coincidence or is something else happening here? And then for the whole of that summer, I kept seeing these white butterflies. And then it kind of dawned on me eventually, after seeing so many of these butterflies, that butterflies are a symbol of transformation. I'd been through this process where I'd been in my cocoon. I was in this cocoon, during this healing journey. And that was my catalyst then to break out of the chrysalis and evolve into the butterfly that had always wanted to emerge, but had been too consumed, stuck in my own head to fully step out into my power. And that's why I say it's been a real journey over, the last 20 years to reclaim my mental health, reclaim my power, and to be at a point now where, there was always something that was holding me back still because I was so stuck in my head, even though I've been chipping away. But the spinal cord injury was the thing that really broke open my heart and, just really helped me to emerge out of that chrysalis into that butterfly.
It was the butterfly that, the caterpillar, right? And this butterfly had to emerge because it was just suffocating.
Yes, exactly.
The interesting thing about it is when we are on those journeys, we don't see what we meant to see. It's only when we actually transform to the other side, we begin to see the power in things that's happening. Because when I went back into teaching, as I said to you, I teach in a lot of different schools because I'm supply agency, etc. And that have taught me so much. And every minute of the day, every second, there's so many things I have to be grateful for. Because when I go to schools, I say to the teachers, I say, I understand where you're at, but you need to find your win. Every day there is a win. You need to find your win every day. And it's like so many of these teachers are so locked in doing they're on a treadmill that they don't even seem to see that there is win. And I always say to them, listen, I understand we're going through a lot of challenges now, but believe me, there is a win in this. You need to find your win and celebrate it. Celebrate that win, whether or not it was one student that said to you, oh, miss, I understand what you taught me, but it took me so long to understand it. That is an aha moment. Or it's a situation where, even for yourself, something that you were struggling with, you didn't understand, you didn't know how to teach the student, because you were not able to have clarity, and it's a aha moment. That is something to be celebrated. And I think that too often we take so many things for granted because we have not been in those dark moments.
Yeah, the darkest moments are the most humbling.
It is, sure. Because the more you're in those, the more you reflect on those dark moments, the more every single thing in your life become a sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
Every single thing. It's like running to catch that train and the train was a bit late. There is no need to be upset, You have to be grateful because A, the train turned up, and B, it's late. It meant that it gives you an extra time to get there and rest a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so, when things happen, we actually really, as you said, it humbles you. It really does. It really does. Right. Oh my goodness. It's like your journey of kind of a
it's been like a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Okay. What do I ask her next? I don't think there is anything else to ask you, because it's like the journey is so it's so powerful.
Thank you.
Because it also allows you, it's like I'm listening to your journey and there's so many things. It allows you to see so many things that I didn't see. That's one of the beautiful things of me actually doing this transformational, this empowerment session. It actually, as you said earlier on, right? I haven't finished my sentence. As you said earlier on, we are all work in progress. And we are by no means complete. If you're complete, when you're complete, you're dead.
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
We are constantly on this journey. And there's sometimes you have to take that mirror and look at it and look at, reflection and thinking, oh my goodness, this is painful as hell, but I need that reflection because there is something I've been hiding behind. So come on.
Yeah.
So come on. It's so, it's like, your journey is just kind of, I don't know.
A lot. I know it's a lot. It's a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you for
listening. Having the power and the courage to identify the positive and the lessons in it. Because you see, when some people go through some journeys, it's very easy for them to get caught up and remain in that negative, feeling sorry, and in that pity party. And this is something I say to people, you don't want to be in a pity party because you know what? There's so many people want to jump in that pity party with you. You need to get off of that pity party because it is so easy for them to come there with you because it's easy. It's an easy option.
Misery loves company, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that is so true. That is so true. Because it would have been so easy for you to say, you know what? It's like feeling sorry and remain there. but it's not going to serve you. It's like I said to a client last week, I said, you need to decide whether or not what you're holding on to, is it serving you? And why do you think it is serving you? Is it because you are using it as a prop because of the fear that you're experiencing? And from time to time, we all go through fear. Come on. You know, there are times when I go into a new class, a new school, oh my goodness, I'm riddled with fear, but I'm going in there thinking, yes, but I'm excited as well as fearful. Yeah. But there's sometimes we need to feel that fear and find the enjoyment in that fear, right?
Yeah, exactly, because you can use it as a, you know, as a tool. If you start channeling the fear, and because I was for so many years debilitated by fear, like I touched on, you know, the agoraphobia, the anxiety, constantly fearing that somebody was going to die very suddenly because of how my boyfriend died, fearing getting out of my comfort zone, that it kept me stuck for so long. So I know where I am where I am now, but I still spent like a good decade being dictated to by fear. But it's then being able to use that energy, because the energy is still there. I still encounter situations where I'm like, oh, you know, get scared to do stuff, but it's like, try and channel it as an opportunity. So it's like, okay, the fear is here because I'm going out my comfort zone, but let me just set the intention that on the other side of this fear is, again, you know, something that is beautiful, something that's going to help me grow, something that's going to help to elevate my life experience. So I wrote a little note the other day, and it's like, fear doesn't live here anymore. It comes and it passes through, but it doesn't live here, and it doesn't stop me from living anymore.
That's fantastic. That is so fantastic, because when you look at fear is a real dictator. And you need to decide if you are going to be ruled by the dictator, or you are going to say, okay, yes, you're a dictator, but you know what? Tomorrow, I am going to make sure that I stand in my power.
Yeah.
Because, and there's so many times as human beings, we go through fear. No one goes through life without fear, but it depends on how you want to allow it to be in control. It's like there's sometimes you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to count to 3, right? Before I take the step. Because there's sometimes, you know, some things you feel so fearful about that you have to be counting in your head and telling of yourself in your head.
Build yourself up to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we all go through that. It's like there's something I have to say to my student, as much as you see me standing in here full of confidence, etc., that doesn't mean I wasn't afraid to step in. I say, because I don't know what you guys are like. You know, I say, it's like me stepping and thinking, oh my goodness, how would I be received? I said, we all go through that. So in the same way, I went through it and I get over it. You need to stand up in front of that boat, feel the fear and get on with it anyway, because it's going to pass. It's not going to stay. It's going to pass.
Exactly. And it's like, when you feel, well, when I feel scared, it's like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? You know, if I take this step, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then I put it into perspective. Well, my boyfriend died and I'm still alive and thriving. I had a spinal cord injury and I'm still alive and thriving. So, you know, I can do this public speaking event and I will still be alive and thriving and hopefully be more connected to people. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? Because I'm sure that even in the worst case scenario, you're going to pull through, you're going to come through, and you've got the power to navigate the circumstance and turn it into something that doesn't have to be doom and gloom. You know, even if the worst things happen, it's never going to be as bad as you think it is.
Exactly. That is so powerful. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Can you give 3 tips?
3 tips. Question your resistance daily and journal about it, because it's going to give you what you need to know to unlock and to get to the next level. On the other side of resistance is something really beautiful. So examine that. Take more time to connect with nature, find those moments of stillness. And again, you know, if you're anything like me on my meditation journey or in connecting to nature, you'll find resistance. There'll be the call and the pull to pick up your phone or to be distracted. Is like, just test yourself, and just try and commit to like 5 minutes of practice in nature or in quiet reflection. And another thing is, just really examine what you want from life. Take the time to have a think about what's important to you, and then have a little brainstorm around what's holding you back from being there already, and then think about what steps, one step that you can take to move you slightly closer to the end goal that you desire.
Yeah, those are so powerful. The connect with nature, it is a powerful one. And another thing, when in terms of grounding, I keep on saying to people, you need to stand bare feet sometimes on the ground and feel the soil or the,
because it's got its own energy.
It has, and it makes you feel so grounded. People don't understand, and it doesn't, you know, it's just a few minutes and you would feel the different energy going through your body. It is so powerful, and I don't think people realize the power of shoes off and feet on ground.
Yep.
So powerful. Yeah. Zoe, thank you so very much.
Thank you
very much for sharing your journey with us. It has been powerful.
Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for holding this space, and to your community. And yeah, if anybody would like to connect on Instagram, I'm at zoe.e.fox. I'm not quite as active on Facebook, but you can catch me at zoe.e.fox as well. And my website, which is also zoefox.co.uk.
Right. Send me the anyway, send it to me on Instagram, and then I just put it in the you know, put it on my page.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I am so grateful for you sharing that journey with us.
Thank you. It's been a beautiful conversation.
It's been so beautiful. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Facebook people. Thank you for listening, guys, to this real empowering session. There's so many nuggets in that. Too often we take things for granted. Life should not be taken for granted. We need to see the beauty, and we need to be grateful every second of the day. Too often we take people and things for granted. And the things that, you know, we just seem to make it such a big issue. It shouldn't. Take care, people. Stay blessed. You know, your journey is really, really touched me all over.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, people. Have a fantastic evening, morning, night where you are. And I'll see you guys on Friday, where I'll be discussing home education or homeschooling, an alternative to the traditional education. Yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, I'm in traditional education, but guess what? We are not always able to fulfill the needs of every child. And you need to remember that as parents, carers, guidance, you are the best teacher for your children, right? You don't even have to go and go into, you know, education to know that, because you are your child's first teacher. So therefore, because you're the first teacher, you know your child more than we do. You just lend us to them for the day. We don't know your children. We know your children on a superficial basis. Hence the reason why I'm a strong advocate for homeschooling, home education, because the education system just program your children to rote learn things and tune it back out. That's why I don't fit in every school. Some school, when they see me, before I open my mouth, they tell me they don't want me. And I understand that. because I'm not the traditional teacher. I'm the teacher that teaches outside the box. One student said to me a few weeks ago, Miss, the box is so far away, I don't even think you know there was a box. So you cannot fit into any box that never existed. So that's my Friday show. My Saturday show is speaking to female educators from around the world so that we actually share the journey, what it was like before COVID, during COVID, and now after COVID. Is it business as usual? For some schools, it's business as usual. They didn't even remember a pandemic take place, except the impact we're seeing on the young people, the mental health. So join me on those 2 sessions where we're going to be chatting. So come and chat with us, guys. Take care, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys on